I'm diving deep into the myths of the Wild West and challenging myself to separate fact from fiction. Let's see how many of these widely believed stories are actually false. The Wild West has long been romanticized in popular culture, but how many of the stories we've been told are actually true? From cowboy shootouts to outlaw escapades, we've all grown up with a certain idea of what the Wild West was like. But what if I told you that many of these stories are nothing more than myths? Myths that have been perpetuated by Hollywood, literature, and even our own imaginations. We've all seen the movies and TV shows, the rugged cowboy, the ruthless outlaw, the dusty, lawless towns. But how much of this is actually based in reality? The truth is, many of these portrayals are grossly exaggerated or just plain wrong. Take the idea of the lone cowboy, for example. In reality, most cowboys worked in groups, not alone, and were often more concerned with herding cattle than facing off in a shootout. Another misconception is the portrayal of outlaws as charming, roguish figures. In reality, many outlaws were brutal, violent men who committed heinous crimes. And what about the idea that the Wild West was a place of constant violence and lawlessness? In reality, many towns had strict laws and regulations, and violence was relatively rare. So why do we believe these myths in the first place? I think it's because they make for a more exciting story. Who wouldn't want to imagine a world of gunfights and daring heists, of heroism and villainy? But the truth is, the Wild West was a complex, nuanced place, full of real people with real stories. One of the biggest myths surrounding the Wild West is that shootouts were a daily occurrence. We've all seen the images, the main street showdown, the gunslingers facing off, the smoke-filled air. But the truth is, shootouts were extremely rare. In fact, many towns had strict gun control laws, and violence was often avoided at all costs. Another myth is that all cowboys were white. In reality, many cowboys were African American, Mexican, or Native American. But perhaps the most shocking myth of all is that the Wild West was a place of racial harmony. We've all heard stories of cowboys and outlaws living together in peaceful coexistence, but the truth is, the Wild West was a deeply racist and segregationist society. Many African Americans were forced to live on the outskirts of towns, and violence against them was commonplace. This myth is particularly disturbing because it erases the very real struggles of African Americans during this time period. It's a myth that has been perpetuated by popular culture, and it's one that we need to confront head-on. The truth is, the Wild West was a place of deep racism and inequality, and we need to acknowledge this if we're going to move forward. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? I think it's that history is often more complex and nuanced than our popular narratives suggest. We need to be willing to challenge these myths and misconceptions, and to seek out the truth, even when it's uncomfortable or difficult. Thanks for watching, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on these myths in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning more about the Wild West and other historical topics, be sure to check out our next video.